Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we'll be reviewing tips for the removal and replacement of the mass airflow sensor on this 2024 Chevy Malibu with the 1.5 liter engine. If you find my tips to be helpful, please like, subscribe, and comment. Now let's get started. The mass airflow sensor is located in the center of your screen near the tip of my pointer. Some of the symptoms associated with faulty sensors include hard start, stalling, hesitation, excessive lean idle, heavy carbon on your tailpipe, and check engine light with trouble codes P1201, P1202, P1203, P1211, and P1213. So you might ask, what does a mass airflow sensor do? Well, it measures the amount of air entering the engine, which helps calculate the proper air-fuel ratio. Our supply list includes a T15 hex tool, cross-tip screwdriver, engine degreaser spray, mass airflow sensor spray, a mass airflow sensor, and an air filter if needed. Please see other items in the description below. I'm just going to kick this off with a pro tip right now. Before you think about replacing the mass airflow sensor, the first thing you should check is the condition of the air filter. Because chances are, if you have a clogged air filter, it's going to throw the same code as if this sensor was faulty. So let's go ahead and access the filter element box. And we can do that using a flat tip screwdriver or a cross tip screwdriver. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws that need to be loosened. Once you loosen those screws, you can simply reach in here and pull out the air filter. And here it is. This filter has a double filter. There's a pre-filter, and then there's the basic pleated filter. And this is not typical of what you would see in a vehicle, but it is what it is. I'll read off the number here. The number for this filter is 23430312, and I'll have it linked below in the description. So let's talk about the condition of this filter. It's really not in bad shape. Obviously there's a pre-filter here that makes it look worse than it is. Take this filter and hit it on the ground, tap, 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 and 70% of this will come off. And so I'm gonna do that right now. There's a nice spot on the ground where I tap it on the ground. There's some oil staining, that's not gonna come off. But if you see, most of the heavy debris came off. These pleats are a little bit wavy. And so what this tells me is that this filter is probably more than 12 months old, or at one point it absorbed some moisture. And so that's why these pleats are wavy. And so really this filter is at the end of its life and should be discarded. If you were using a replaceable filter, a filter that you would clean and then apply a small amount of oil to, that is something that you would also check before replacing the sensor, okay? Because oftentimes people will add too much oil to those replaceable filters. And one way to know that if you have too much oil, if you take the filter out and you could see the visible shininess right here, that tells you that's too much oil. Okay, that's one indicator. Also, if you look down into the airbox housing and it's full of oil, that's definitely telling you that it's way too much oil in that filter. And so what you'd have to do is use engine degreaser and clean out this entire filter housing, right? And then clean out your filter, add a light coat of oil, put your filter back in the box, and you have to do all of that before working on the sensor itself. And so now we're going to work on the sensor. Just gonna slide this back into place. I'll screw it down later. Okay, so in order to access the sensor, you're going to use your T15 hex tool, and you're going to have to remove 2 screws. There's 1 screw here, and there's 1 screw there. I've already removed 1 of the screws. Be careful, they're pretty short and they will fall. Next, I'm going to unlock this locking mechanism to the out position. Once I have it in the out position, I press down right here in this black area, squeeze, and then pull off the connector, just like that. Now I pull out what I call the blade. And here you have it. This is your mass airflow sensor. Okay, these things are pretty much bulletproof. It's gonna be rare that one of these will go out unless it gets very contaminated with oil and or dirt, as I mentioned before. But let's just go through a quick check. And so looking at this here, first thing I would do, I do what I call a top-down check. So I'm looking at my pins. All my pins are nice and straight. I'm looking at the power supply. It looks nice and smooth. I don't see any bulges here. There's a part number. I'm going to go ahead and read it off for you. Part number is 23366103. That's a GM part number. Okay, moving down, I see that there's a gasket here. It's kind of hard to see. That gasket needs to be in place and it should be pliable. So if you stick your thumbnail into it, it should be a little pliable, but make sure it's in place. If that gasket is not there, that will cause an air leak and it will trigger a check engine light. So make sure that the gasket is there. Inside here, we have some electronic components. Hypothetically, if this was covered with a light coat of oil and you could see that it was contaminated, what you could use is your mass airflow sensor spray, okay? And spray right down in and onto these components, okay? That's all it needs. You see, I'm just hitting it lightly. And you can see that it's drying up right away. If I just shake it a little bit, and look at there, it dried right away. And so you should be able to spray off any oil or dust, just spray it off. You shouldn't have to touch it. You should never, ever, ever use a brush or any type of abrasive cleaner on this device because you will damage it. Okay, so that's a warning for you. And really, that's all I wanted to cover in this video, is just to show you guys where this thing is located, give you a couple of pro tips, and then get this thing reinstalled and get on with this video. With that, let's go ahead and get this reinstalled. Now remember, this has all been cleaned out. There's a little notch right here, and then there's a piece of plastic that sticks out right there. On the opposite side, there's a little notch here and there's a little plastic that sticks out. So it only fits one way. There you go. Looking for my 2 screws here. I've got 1. So holding that in place. I've got my hex tool. Got that 1 screw to about 80%. Now this one's a little more trickier because you can't see that well. Make sure you can see very well. There you go. You might have to shake the sensor a little bit. There we go. Both the screws were installed to about 80%. Just tighten them down snug. Okay. Let's make our electrical connection. You heard the click, then you're going to lock it down. Okay, this sensor is installed, and so now let's go ahead and get this air box closed properly. So you pick it up, and there's 2 little tabs here. Those tabs need to go down and fit into these 2 slots down here, okay? Press those two tabs in place. Get those two tabs into those slots. There you go. Okay, now go around and tighten up all the screws at that location. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, I'm just going to tighten down 2, and you're going to have to complete the rest on your own. Okay? And I recommend that you use a regular screwdriver, because if you use a power or electric screwdriver, you could strip these bolt locations. I know it's a little bit of a hassle and we're kind of spoiled with our electric screwdrivers, but I don't like to use electric screwdrivers on plastic parts. Okay, so that's another tip for you. And besides tightening up all of the screws, let's go ahead and wrap this video up. This completes the video on the removal and replacement of the mass airflow sensor for this 2024 Chevy Malibu with the 1.5 liter engine. I hope you found my tips to be helpful. Please like and subscribe. And until next time, drive defensively.